Story 1. Intentionally creating an uncomfortable environment to force the other person to cave is making me reconsider. Story 2. Financial issues, constant lying, and physical or emotional abuse. Story 3. We are overspending. This is something we cannot do in this economy. I will not tolerate a spouse who spends excessively. Story 4. Abuse, obviously. Apart from that, major betrayals or serious lies, financial deception, drug involvement, criminal activity, or lying by omission about any life-altering circumstances. Story 5. Consistently putting you down or making jokes at your expense in public, thinking it is funny to embarrass or upset you. Story 6. Horrendous mother. You may not think it is a big deal now, but trust me, you will. Story 7. 1. Never admitting they are wrong even when obviously wrong. Story 8. My ex-husband told our then 5-year-old son that he would put him in his grave if he ever did that again. My son had yelled at his father, asking him not to yell at his mother again. He cried and told me he did not want his father to make him go live in the graveyard where all the scary monsters live. His only understanding of the threat came from watching Scooby-Doo. My ex-husband was verbally abusive to me. I would not tolerate that with our children. Story 9. A few things that come to mind. Inability to communicate, and a partner who does not care to try. Violence or abuse. Lack of effort in the relationship. Hidden or ongoing poor financial decisions. Allowing a partner's family to take priority over the relationship. Alcohol or drug abuse with an unwillingness to change. A partner who changes over time and no longer cares about you. Partner who is not or is no longer your best friend. These are some common reasons why a marriage or relationship will not last. Story 10. Anything that jeopardizes our kids. Hopefully that goes both ways. Story 11. This is not as serious as some other people's comments, but growing apart as people reached the point where they were no longer my person. I ended relationships because of this, and it was painful. I was simply no longer happy. Story 12. Beyond the obvious things to me, such as abuse, lying, and moral differences, two big issues are whether a partner wants children and whether they want to spend time with me in the same way. I do not want children, so that is clear, but for spending time you need to be compatible and have similar goals in life. My ex only wanted to go out to movies and dinner and mostly played video games otherwise. I wasted too much time trying to get him out of the house. My new fiancé enjoys spending time outdoors, going to concerts, festivals, and museums. We just took a trip to Mexico. Find someone who wants to enjoy life the same way you do. Story 13. If I no longer find peace and comfort at home, that is why people get married in the first place. Story 14. Failing to follow through on promises or not being there when I need you. Story 15. Controlling behavior of any sort. Doing anything to test me, I would be out the door very quickly. Story 16. He did not attempt to repair the relationship. When my ex-partner did something hurtful, he would move mountains to make me happy for a while, but we never discussed it and he never apologized. He refused to take responsibility for anything. We continued like that until the violence and abuse escalated to a breaking point, and the cycle repeated. Story 17. Any form of abuse. Emotional, including manipulation, physical, sexual, or verbal. Story 18. Do you want to know what led to the end of my marriage? Verbal and emotional abuse. Severe drug and alcohol abuse. He came out as gay and admitted he knew he was gay before we started dating. Diagnosed but untreated mental illness. Story 19. Physical violence, heroin, Scientology, and infidelity are my deal breakers. Even a taste of any of those and I walk. Edited. Thank you for the kind outreach via Reddit Cares. Anonymous Reddit Scientologist. I am doing just fine. You should see a therapist, though. Story 20. Financial deceit. I knew a couple who divorced because the wife had a gambling addiction and hid her debts from her husband. He only found out because one day he got to the mail before she did. Cheating breaks trust once. Lying about money breaks it every day you stay silent. Story 21. Abuse does not matter mentally, physically, or financially. Story 22. Porn addiction is not occasional visits to a porn site. It is hours of viewing each day, hundreds of videos, and lying about your whereabouts to watch pornography. Story 23. I had to have a serious conversation with my fiancée about her dad's behavior. She was being uncharacteristically forgiving of him, and that was sending huge red flags. He said openly hostile things, essentially that he would not be opposed to his daughters being murdered for being Democrats. I pushed very hard to go. No contact, but in the end she had a long talk with him, and he has since mellowed a lot and agreed not to talk about politics around us. I still hate him and would rather never see him again, but I can deal with having an insane right-wing father-in-law if I only need to make small talk about the weather with him twice a year. I never thought someone's parents would be the reason to end a relationship, but that was a close call. Story 24. Not a romantic relationship, I guess, but my best friend of 25 years. If there are two people on Earth with as much in common and as much shared history as me and this guy, I would like to meet them. I should add that this guy is a stay-at-home husband with no kids. He spends his days watching TikTok every day. A few weeks ago, my mother passed away. I had done nothing but think about it for about 70 hours leading up to it and still could not stop. I texted him, told him the hell I had been through, and asked him to hang out for half an hour so I could have a few minutes without thinking about her. I did not even want to talk about it. He said no. He told me he and his partner had been fighting a lot and that was all the emotion he could handle. I do not have many rules or boundaries in friendships, but coming through for a friend when they ask you to is one of them. Completely changed the way I see him. I used to see a brother I loved. Now I just see a narcissistic asshole who cares more about himself than anyone else. Sadly, that relationship is over. I will probably never speak to him again. It is a shame to see a 25-year friendship die because he could not put his own problems aside for 20 minutes and help out a friend. It has been a rough couple of weeks. Story 25. I just filed for divorce because I constantly felt like I was walking on eggshells around her. No matter what I did, it was never enough and I was always being yelled at. There had been no intimacy for years. I reached a point where I was walking across a bridge over a highway and really wanted to jump, but there was a large fence so it was not possible. That is when I knew I had to end it before it ended me. Story 26. When it does not add to my happiness. You do not need a reason to be happy. Story 27. Place the toilet paper so the loose end hangs underneath the roll. Story 28. When your partner tries to limit your freedom, friends, or voice. Story 29. Discovering that my partner and I have fundamental differences in moral and ethical beliefs would be difficult. I hope this is discovered before things get serious. Story 30. There are many reasons. Pathological lying, a harmful addiction that a partner refuses to address, physical or emotional abuse or neglect, a refusal to maintain basic hygiene, cult-like devotion to political or religious beliefs, or being an unpleasant person. I would rather be single than constantly stressed by a partner. Story 31. A lack of sex may not be a big deal to some, but to me it is after being in a 5-year sexless marriage. I was deeply unhappy, and that resulted in the breakdown of my marriage, which is heading for divorce in 1 month's time. Story 32. Refusing to seek diagnosis or treatment for a mental health disorder, engaging in excessive drinking, and blaming me for all the problems. Story 33. Poor financial habits. My last partner had a lot of family money and spent it wildly, often unable to go a single day without making large purchases. Sometimes they spent my entire annual salary in a single day, which made me uncomfortable. Whether you have a lot of money or not, it is a bad habit to be in. Story 34. Always creating a winnable situation. If I surprise you, I am wrong because I have thrown off your rhythm. If I do not surprise you, I am wrong because everything becomes boring and predictable. If I initiate sex, I am called a slut who is trying to trap you into fatherhood. If I do not initiate sex, you do not feel desirable. If I spend time with my friends, I am neglecting you. If I cut back and spend more time with you, I am needy and told I need a life. If I clean, you hate the way I clean. If I do not clean, I am dirty. Story 35. Abuse, assault, and battery. Sexual, verbal, physical, or any form in between. There may be arguments for murder or theft, but knowingly abusing someone, especially me, is unacceptable. Story 36. Politics. If a potential partner is a Republican, especially a supporter of Make America Great Again, it raises about 50 red flags and they may not be kind. Story 37. For me, it would probably be constant disrespect. Not the big, dramatic kind, but the little jabs and dismissive attitudes that build up over time. Story 38. Constant mental gymnastics is a very close second to cheating. If you allow it to continue long enough, it becomes mental abuse. Violent partners and other extreme situations can cause similar harm. This form of abuse is not discussed enough, yet it has serious consequences for one's well-being. It just happens much more slowly. Story 39. Crossing my boundaries after I have explicitly stated them at the start of the relationship is unacceptable. Lying is common but can cause me to end the relationship. I do not tolerate dishonesty. Story 40. You are not trying to improve yourself or the aspects that would support a better relationship. Story 41. Being racist, homophobic, transphobic, or engaging in any other form of offensive behavior that treats a minority group as inferior is unacceptable. It costs nothing to be kind and respectful to all people. Story 42. A difference in political views, casual cruelty, lying about finances or putting us in debt irresponsibly, for example, running up credit cards, overspending, or gambling. Any violence, physical or sexual. Essentially, I'm not willing to settle. Act right or leave. Story 43. She made false accusations of cheating and lying. I tried to tough it out, hoping she would show some trust, but it snowballed into her becoming angry at the smallest mistakes and even accusing my children of stealing. All of this only made me angry as well. It was so toxic. Story 44. A mental break caused a dangerous situation. I am going through that right now. Story 45. I discovered that they had not only accumulated a large amount of debt, but had also been hiding it. Story 46. When someone constantly talks down to me, ignores my feelings, or belittles me, it erodes trust and love quickly. Story 47. Low libido and a refusal to work with me to address it are issues I am currently struggling with, and it sucks. Story 48. Regarding addiction, unless someone is serious about getting help, some crimes would definitely matter a lot. Story 49. 1. Animal cruelty. 2. Being unsafe to be honest with, that is, attacking someone for bringing up things that are bothering or upsetting them. Story 50. Lying, manipulation, being degrading or rude to myself or others, and being inconsiderate, to name just a few. Story 51. I have a rule. Anytime physical violence occurs in a relationship, that relationship is over. Story 52. Starting to express Republican or racist sentiments. Story 53. Total refusal to seek therapy, medical care, or other interventions for harmful addictions and mental health problems, which create drama, dysfunction, and abuse for other household members. Story 54. Physical abuse. I'm a big man. A girlfriend once hit me. Never again. Story 55. Wrecking you financially as a way of throwing a tantrum. If someone does anything cruel to you financially, they are dangerous. Get away. Someone who tries to hurt you financially out of spite is a monster and will terrorize you for the rest of your life. From personal experience. That was my ex. I am currently planning to leave, and it will require legal assistance and probably some form of debt restructuring. Always be responsible for your own money, and leave if someone does anything like this. It will never get better. I never thought I would be in a women's shelter, but that is part of planning a safe exit. Story 56. They are constantly demanding that their feelings take precedence over mine. I need my feelings to matter too. Every fight right now is about how I am hurting him by bringing up anything. I never feel resolved, and he is sad that I have hurt him so much. I do not think he is doing it on purpose. Story 57. Allowing the family of origin to continuously intrude into the marriage by overstepping boundaries and nitpicking. Story 58. Being thrown under the bus. Men with pornography addiction. Inability to see me as a human being. Story 59. A lack of effort to remain desirable to me is a problem. I understand that natural factors such as aging, medical conditions, and having children will change people's bodies, appearance, and abilities. I do not need my partner to look perfect, be put together all the time, exercise every day, or go to extreme lengths to be attractive. But I do need them to make an effort and care about their appearance. If I make an effort to look good and stay healthy for my partner, I expect the same in return. If we are committed to each other and my partner is the only person I will have sex with for the rest of my life, I want to be attracted to them. Sex is important to me in a relationship, and I need to be physically attracted to my partner to enjoy it. Story 60. Being around them is mentally and emotionally exhausting. Story 61. I could forgive cheating, but not crashing the family finances, alcoholism, drug addiction, or habitual lying. Story 62. My so-called father constantly badmouths my mother in front of friends and family. At every gathering, he finds something negative to say about her or about things she did years ago that he still complains about. It is incredibly distasteful and disrespectful to do that to a partner, and I have made it a rule never to have a partner like him. He has also committed physical and sexual abuse. He is terrible all around and a deadbeat as well. Story 63. Religion or politics. I can have friends who differ in those areas, but I go home after spending time with them. Living with someone on the opposite side of such a polarizing issue does not seem sustainable, at least if being happy is your goal. Even if we agree on many things, if they are too extreme, living together can still be difficult. Story 64. She constantly disrespected me, talked to me as if I were an idiot, and made fun of me to her friends and family. I am done. Story 65. Political views that did not align with my own, a shift in parenting strategy, and lies are a few things that spring to mind. Story 66. A sexless relationship. I would not be angry, but sex is an important part of a relationship. If she lost interest and it was lasting, I would do us both a favor and end it. Lack of affection. I am not looking for a roommate for life. I am looking for a partner who loves me and whom I can love. If we end up behaving like roommates and working on it together does not change things, I will let her go because she is no longer interested and I need more in a relationship. Story 67. Abuse, entitled behavior, manipulation of any kind, and poor hygiene. Story 68. Manipulation and abuse. I have seen one of my oldest friends die after 3 decades of friendship because he became isolated and did not have the strength to get out. Story 69. Lack of respect. Once that's gone, nothing else can hold a relationship together. Story 70. Lying, racism, extreme left or right-wing politics, and whether she had a third nipple. Honestly, the first two. Story 71. Gaslighting. My former partner would say something horrible, then immediately deny it when I confronted him about it. Story 72. Substance use disorder destroyed my marriage. I have the receipts. Story 73. Smoking and asking me to change my religious beliefs for you were both mistakes that drove my parents apart. Story 74. Future or current in-laws. I have heard this can be an issue. Not me. My in-laws are the best. Story 75. I don't think it has ever been one thing, to be honest. I had to date a lot of difficult people to find my wife, and with each one there was a pattern of behavior that made me think, are you kidding? In a nutshell, it was not being in it together. Whether it was not having a shared vision of the future or finances, not valuing each other's opinion, playing the victim too much, being manipulative in fights, or something else, their behavior was toxic and showed they were thinking of themselves rather than us. When issues were more extreme, the relationship never reached the stage of being serious. It was a moment of realizing that their attitude or behavior toward the relationship or me was not what I wanted and could not be fixed. Story 76. Addiction or criminality. I dated someone for about 18 months before realizing they were a high-functioning alcoholic. Sorry, I didn't sign up for that. Story 77. I could handle anything else except harming our children. Story 78. If she turned out to be a human-lizard hybrid, no thank you. I run hot and prefer my home to be on the cooler side. There is no way I could handle living with someone cold-blooded. Story 79. A bad dog owner, abusive or heavy-handed with any animal, to be honest. Story 80. Someone is being extremely rude, micromanaging everything I do, and not trusting me. Story 81. Abuse, physical, emotional, verbal, psychological, and financial. Story 82. My ex-husband never cheated, but he did pretty much anything else. He denied medical care for me and the children. No dentist appointments and no pediatrician visits. He never listened to my feelings because he was 10 years older and believed women are too emotional to make logical decisions. Therefore, I had no say over finances or health choices. If either of us got angry, he insisted we resolve it immediately regardless of the other's need for space. For example, if I got upset over something he did, I could not go into another room to calm down. He would break down doors and talk through doors for hours. If I talked back, he would break the door. If I stayed silent, he kept talking. He was extremely religious and often used his beliefs against anything I wanted to do for myself, such as coloring my hair, getting piercings, or tattoos. I had no bodily autonomy. For years, if I did not obey him, he would withhold sex. Near the end, I stopped wanting sex, and he pressured me through emotional manipulation until I complied. I did not call it rape because I sometimes consented due to attraction, even though I found him disgusting as a partner. The month I left, he put his hands on me. I tried to call emergency services, but he took my phone and hid it. I ran to my neighbor's house and she called emergency services for me. He was arrested and charged. I left while he was in jail after about 6 hours. Story 83, manipulation and overall terrible mood, and being treated poorly. It wouldn't happen overnight, but it would build up to that. There are many reasons other than cheating. Story 84. Lying, abuse, and finding creepy or inappropriate material, excluding pornography, which I do not care about. I am referring to stalker pictures of people they know or to images of individuals of questionable age without a valid reason. Story 85. Drug use, lying, constant rudeness toward other people, and gaslighting. Story 86. A gambling addiction that leads to losing hundreds of thousands of dollars. Discovering that someone is taking out credit cards in the names of people around you. Story 87. Deliberately denying mental health treatment despite your partner begging you is harmful. Serious personality disorders do not just affect the person who has them but everyone around them. It is heartbreaking to see someone ruin themselves and the good things around them because they think medicating is weak. Story 88. All addictions are signs of larger unresolved issues or poor character. I grew up drowning in the ghetto and now want no connections to that life. Story 89. If it gets physical, unfortunately there is no going back. Story 90. Abuse, whether physical, mental, or verbal, does not matter. I have zero tolerance for that behavior, and I will never let it happen to me again. Story 91. Being a mama's boy means she is over-involved and he cannot make a decision without her. If she comes first in everything, I am done. Do not ever date a mama's boy. Story 92. Lying or any gambling or addiction issues that they are not willing to seek help for. Story 93. Abuse. Physical, financial, or emotional. Any one of those would send me to the airport. Story 94. Alcoholism ruined my childhood and almost ruined my marriage many years ago. At the time, my husband could not stop smoking marijuana, which now sounds harmless since it is legal in many states. This was the early 1990s, when many companies conducted random drug testing. We were a young, struggling family, and I was paranoid he would lose his job. It was the lying about it that really tested our marriage. We went to therapy, and fortunately he stopped using for about 10 years. Story 95. Okay. I am curious how others perceive not wanting a dog or any pets. Story 96. I won't clean. It's exhausting. I'm not the damn maid or your mother. Story 97. A serious addiction. A man called into the Ramsey Show recently and has racked up $800,000 in online sports betting debt. Credit cards, a home equity line of credit, and bank loans were used, all without his wife's knowledge. Story 98. Problem gambling. Lack of respect. Dishonesty. Becoming excessively controlling. Story 99. If she refuses to sign a prenuptial agreement and gaslights me about it. Story 100. If my partner decided he actually wanted children, it would be an immediate deal breaker. Story 101. Hating physical touch. I agree that people have a right to boundaries, but I do not feel loved if someone is unwilling to touch me. No, I do not mean sex is a requirement. I briefly dated a man who disliked any physical touch, even sitting close together. Story 102. Vote for Trump. Not going to lie, I asked her on our first date. We are married now. It was the one thing I would not be able to enjoy, our differences. Story 103. The need to win a fight. We are on the same team. Disagreeing is fine, but I never want to win. I want to reach an agreement. It is crazy to me that people act that way. Story 104. Being a coward is unacceptable. If a robber comes and someone runs into the bathroom and locks the door, leaving me and the children outside, and they freeze in a crisis to the detriment of the children, I will seek sole custody and a divorce. If someone is too scared to stand up for you when you are being put down by family, friends, or strangers, develop a backbone. Story 105. If she likes those short-form duet videos with a man laughing and pointing on screen while chipmunk-like laughter plays over the video to signal that it is funny, I am done. Story 106. Addiction of any kind. Pornography and video game addiction count too. Story 107. I am currently single, but in my next relationship I will not accept a partner who refuses to spend time with or visit my family. I am close to my family and they mean the world to me, so I expect anyone I date to spend time with them. Story 108. Substance abuse, neglect, emotional abuse, and financial abuse. Story 109. Drug use, alcoholism, reckless spending, and illegal activities. Story 110. Finding out that they are still madly in love with someone they dated before you came into the picture. Story 111. Whatever was wrong in the relationship that could have led to cheating. Story 112. I was married to a high-functioning alcoholic who was abusive at times. He made good money and had a great job, so he did not think he had a problem. He did not have to drink every day. He drank only from Thursday through Sunday. Story 113. I experienced verbal abuse in a previous relationship. I am still trying to recover 5 years after ending the relationship and maintaining no contact. Story 114. It is probably addiction or being a deadbeat parent. I am not trying to date a drug addict or a fucking bum. Story 115. Controlling or abusive behavior. Inability to communicate or to convey emotions and feelings. Ideologies that not only differ from mine but directly contradict them. Racism. Sexism. Many of these things do not appear until later in the relationship, after the honeymoon phase. There is no rush to fall in love. Take your time and make sure you truly know the other person before entering a deep commitment. Story 116. Any kind of abuse of animals or of people who are unable to protect themselves. Story 117. Unresolved fights are difficult. I would never willfully end a relationship. I am a firm believer in working things out. Unresolved conflict, when both people go quiet and let it be, becomes a breeding ground for resentment. In the future, I will try to pause during an argument and say that a specific action made me annoyed and explain why, but that I do not want to be annoyed at my partner. That way, I am clearly communicating what the problem or trigger was, and it reduces aggression and resentment by clarifying that I do not want to feel that way toward my partner. Then you can both learn together. Story 118. The obvious examples are verbal abuse, gaslighting, belittling, and lying. Story 119. Someone who has to control everything, such as what we spend money on or how we behave during romantic relationships. Story 120. Abuse of children, animals, elders, or people with disabilities, and uncontrolled substance or gambling addiction. Story 121. I will do anything for you. Please speak to me respectfully. It is not a big ask. Story 122. Lying or hiding important information. Being disrespectful and destructive. Not being able to take care of themselves and having no desire to learn. Story 123. gaslighting and begging me to share my feelings, then getting mad when I do because you don't like what you hear. Story 124. There are many things far worse than cheating. For example, being a rapist, a murderer, or someone who harms others. Story 125. Most of these responses describe traits of people with narcissistic personality disorder. If you are or were a partner of a person with narcissistic personality disorder, please get help, because traumatic stress often results from prolonged exposure. Story 126. If your partner becomes an enemy rather than an ally, remember that it should be you and your partner against the world. If you have to defend yourself against them, first try to fix things, for example, through couples counseling and open communication. If that does not work, walk away. A strong couple can get through almost anything. Story 127. I would not end a marriage over cheating. I would not stay with someone who puts my life in danger. Story 128. Hitting. I watched my parents physically assault each other when I was a child. I cannot be around someone who tries to be violent. Story 129. If she tortures and murders animals in her spare time, I think that is a reasonable deal breaker. Story 130. There is a lack of physical and verbal communication. I am not referring to sexual matters or to frequently saying I love you. I could not consider myself to be in a relationship with someone who ignores me. Story 131. Lack of commitment. Either we are both 100% in or we are not. Anything less than full commitment is not worth the effort. Story 132. My friend has an angry husband who carries a lot of trauma, and I couldn't do that. Life is short, and I couldn't carry someone the entire way emotionally. Story 133. Any kind of abuse, physical, sexual, or verbal. Once a partner crosses that line, they do not return. Story 134. Cruelty to animals and cruelty to anyone is wrong, but when pets are involved it is doubly so. I wouldn't just divorce. I'd seek revenge. Story 135. Find out at the last minute that she has a large debt. Story 136. If I discover my partner is hiding money, hiding how they spend money, or hiding secret debts, I will leave. I am completely open about my financial information in my marriage, and I will not be responsible for someone else's money management problems after I have worked hard and exercised self-control to keep my life stable and affordable. I do not live in a community property state, so I will not remain in that situation. Story 137. If you have arrogance and pride, other ugly traits will follow. Story 138. Smoking. I do not care whether it is cigarettes, marijuana, or vaping. Use other drugs if you wish, as long as you do not light them and inhale the smoke. Emphysema took my grandmother. I watched her suffer from as early as I can remember until I was 17. She only smoked for a few years, about 20 years before I was born. I will never watch that happen to another loved one. I told my wife this was a deal breaker on the first day of our relationship. Story 139. I signed up for monogamy, not abstinence. The only real deal breaker would be if they stopped working and just ate fast food and watched television all day. Story 140. I have experienced addiction and will never forget how horrible it felt to be second to whatever they were addicted to. Story 141. Differences in life goals. Living abroad or having children. Story 142. Not being clear about your limits, especially when I specifically ask for them because I do not want to accidentally cross them. Note that there is a difference between not knowing your limits and not being honest about them. Story 143. A serious breach of trust. My ex and I were having a house built. Both of our salaries were listed as qualifications on the mortgage. I called her work number. The department secretary answered, asked my name, and transferred me to the department manager, an old high school friend. I found out that she had quit 2 weeks earlier. That was a breach of trust. I took her home to her parents, divorced her, and let them deal with it. Her father was wealthy. Story 144. When they are struggling, you have to drop everything immediately to come to their side, or you are not being an attentive partner. But when you are struggling, they write you off as overdramatic or whiny. Story 145. My former partner had a serious gambling addiction and refused to stick with treatment. It was absolute torture to watch them destroy themselves and be powerless to help. Our connection was so powerful, but it could not withstand that. Story 146. There are multiple reasons: physical abuse, mental and emotional abuse, neglect, disrespect, addiction, and unwillingness to get help. There are other reasons, but I do not want to end my day with negativity, so I will watch cute animal videos. Story 147. Hiding or lying about massive credit card debt and not paying the mortgage. Story 148. Lying about major financial spending, commitments, or credit. Story 149. Money often leads to extremely different opinions about finances. Story 150. You discover they are a conspiracy theorist, the "we have slaves on Mars" type. These conversations do not come up during the normal getting to know you phase, and it would be strange to ask directly, "What is your view on Mars?" Story 151. All recreational drugs, including tobacco, are harmful. Excessive drinking is also harmful. Story 152. If you hurt my cat in any way, I will leave you behind. Lack of emotional maturity. Lying. Story 153. Finances. Retirement can be worse than death. Your body is worn and painful. Working is impossible. This country is not age-friendly. If you are with someone who is not also a long-term earner and planner, run before they take the little money you have saved in a divorce. Story 154. He expected a stay-at-home wife while I was working more hours and earning more money than he was. Story 155. She stopped having sex with me without giving a reason. I can tell she is no longer into me. I do not want a sibling-like relationship. Story 156. Turning every little thing into a fight and walking on eggshells will ruin it for me, even for a day. Story 157. Disdain and ongoing disrespect eat away at everything. Story 158. When a small argument turns into name-calling, belittling, and contributes nothing constructive to the disagreement, ask whether you are trying to solve the problem at hand or fuel it like a fire and allow it to snowball. Stress is inevitable, but how someone deals with issues is important. You want someone who looks for solutions, not destruction. Story 159. I was unconditionally committed to my marriage. We never had to deal with infidelity, but we had other issues, and neither of us would leave the other. He passed away in the spring. I have many boundaries and deal breakers now. I think it is better to remain single. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.